Have you guys ever been outside playing and seen a nest of any sort? What kind of nest do you usually see? Like a bird's nest? Right, well there's lots of different animals that can make nests. And in this book today, A Nest is Noisy by Diana Hutz Aston, we are going to learn about a whole bunch of different kind of nests and different animals that make nests. This book is called a nonfiction book, and do you guys remember what nonfiction means? Right, nonfiction means that it is true, it is factual. So we're going to be learning all sorts of facts in this book called A Nest is Noisy. While we're reading, I want you to listen really closely to all the different kinds of materials that a nest can be made out of. And I want you to remember two of them. Pick two materials that you didn't know a nest could be made out of. So listen carefully while we read this book. A nest is noisy. It is a nursery of chirp chirping, buzzing squeaking, peep peeping, bubbling babies. A nest is welcoming. Many birds assemble a cradle for their eggs, knitting together leaves and twigs and softening it with grass, hair, moss, fluffy seeds, leaf skeletons, or even a snake's old skin. They might also add candy wrappers, plastic bags, and bits of cloth or paper. Birds are not the only animals that make nests. Orangutans climb high into the rainforest canopy, where each day they braid a new bed of strong branches and line it with a mattress of leaves and twigs. On rainy nights, a woven umbrella of leaves keeps them dry. Okay, so take a look here closely at this label on this picture. So here's a picture of a nest and a label, which is very common in nonfiction to tell us what these pictures are. It says blue jay. So we know this is a nest of a blue jay. A nest is enormous. One of the largest birds' nests is the dusky scrub fowls. Their mounded nests are made of decomposing leaves and twigs that can measure more than 36 feet in diameter and nearly 16 feet high. A nest is enormous or tiny. The smallest bird's nest, the bee hummingbirds, is a golf ball-sized cup of moss, lichen, bark, and leaves, usually wrapped in spider silk. The stretchy silk lets the nest expand as the babies grow larger. Okay, let's look at another feature that we have here in non-text or in nonfiction books. You see this picture along the bottom? This is like a ruler to give us an idea of how big this nest would be. So this measures out to 35 feet. And up here, this tiny nest, it shows you with a little ruler that it would be 4 inches. So when you see these pictures in your nonfiction books, make sure you're taking the time to stop and look and see what they're meaning, because they can help put a lot of meaning to what you have just read. A nest is spiky. Elf owls and cactus wrens select a prickly nesting place as a refuge from slithering snakes and other hungry hunters. A nest is pebbly. Eel-like lampreys use their suction cup mouths to move stones the size of peas, walnuts, and even baseballs and create depressions called redds in shallow stream beds. They lay their eggs in the redds and cover them with more pebbles to hide them. A nest is papery. Hornets, yellow jackets, and paper wasps scrape fibers from weathered wood and chew it until it's moist paper that dries into a tough paper-like material. The bald-faced hornet queen makes a cell for each egg. So you can see in this nonfiction text that one of the text structures is comparing and contrasting. So here we are seeing that a nest can be spiky, it can be pebbly, or it can be papery. And this will help us separate things that we are learning into little boxes so we can remember things a little easier. These titles up here, they're not the titles of the book, so we call them subtitles, and they'll tell us what we're going to be reading about underneath each section. Let's see what the subtitle is on the next page. A nest can be even bubbly. So here, what do you think we're going to hear about these nests when you think of bubbly and you look at the pictures? So around water. Let's see if we're right. African gray tree frogs make a foamy nest for their eggs in branches overhanging water. With her hind legs, the female churns a substance secreted from her body into a frothy mass that in sunlight hardens into a meringue-like crust. A few days after the tadpoles hatch, The nest disintegrates and the tadpoles drop into the water where they can feed and develop into frogs. Gourami blow bubbles that pack together to form a nest that floats like a raft in still water. Under the bubble nest, the male and female spawn produce eggs. Once the female has released her eggs, she swims away while the male carries the eggs in his mouth and places them in the nest. After they hatch, the baby fish, or fry, swim beneath the gooey nest where they are guarded by the male until they are ready to strike out on their own. A nest is hot. So here, look here at the label that the illustrator has given us, American alligator. So make sure you're reading your labels too when you are reading nonfiction texts. And up here, it says an oven bird. Some South American ovenbirds forge an adobe oven made with thousands of mud and clay pellets. Baked in the sun, the nest is a cozy place for their eggs. An alligator piles decaying plants and mud to create a mat. In the center, she digs a hole where she lays her eggs and then, with her forelimbs and jaws, covers the nest with more vegetation to keep them warm until they hatch as squeaking babies. The temperature of the nest determines the sex of alligators. Okay, and make sure that you are still listening for different materials that nests can be made out of. If you haven't found 2 of them, keep listening. The subtitle on this page says, "A nest is hidden." In spring and summer, tens of thousands of female Kemp's Ridley sea turtles ride the waves together onto Gulf Coast beaches and drag themselves up to the dunes. They use their hind flippers like shovels to dig a pit in the sand. After the turtle deposits her round, leathery eggs, she tamps down the sand with the underside of her shell and flings more sand over the nest to hide any signs of it. Okay, nonfiction books can also be descriptive, so they can tell us things that are happening or how these nests are made. Let's read about the platypus. The platypus, one of only 2 mammals to lay eggs, hollows out tunnels or burrows along stream beds. With her tail, the female carries moist plant matter deep into the tunnel to make a nest and lays soft-shelled eggs the size of marbles. She adds plugs of soil in the tunnel to protect the eggs from rising waters, predators, and changing temperatures. A nest is neighborly. There is safety in numbers. Some nest builders live in colonies where there are more ears and eyes to raise an alarm when predators, animals that eat other animals, are near. Bioweavers build nests that hang from thorny trees or palm fronds like upside-down bottles. Swinging in the air from a woven tube, each nest is protected from lizards, snakes, and bigger birds. In towns of hundreds of inhabitants, black-tailed prairie dogs make grass-lined nesting chambers within the labyrinth. When a predator is spotted, the prairie dogs bark to warn their neighbors that danger is near. And again here, if I'm reading my labels, I can see the bioweaver, what their nest looks like, and down here, the black-tailed prairie dog, what their nests look like. Army ants make living nests called bivouacas. Clinging to one another's legs and jaws or mandibles, they form a writhing ball of millions of ants suspended from a branch by a chain of more ants. Inside are chambers for the queen, a brood of eggs, newly hatched larvae, and food. And here, the subtitle on this page had said, "A nest is peculiar," so that means kind of strange or wondering. Cave swiftlets concoct a nest made entirely of saliva. Swinging its head from side to side, the male spits long, pearly strands onto the wall of a cave that harden into a lacy bowl when exposed to air. Bird's nest soup, made from swiftlet nests, is among the most expensive foods eaten by humans. So again, lots of description on all these pages about the different nests, how they're made, what they're made of, and the different kind of animals that make them. A nest is muddy. Flamingos erect a heap of mud, grass, and stones up to 12 inches tall and then lay a single egg in a depression at the top. The height protects the egg from changing water levels and excessive ground heat. Both parents feed their hatchlings crop milk from their digestive tracts until they leave the nest. Some creatures choose nests made by others to brood their offspring. Cowbirds and common cuckoos lay their eggs in nests of other birds, where they are hatched and raised by the mother of a different species. Oh, and I missed the subtitle on this one. A nest is adopted. So we're learning about here that some birds and some animals use nests that were made from other animals. The buff-breasted paradise kingfisher flies like a torpedo at a termite nest, smashing into the hard mound with its beak and sometimes dying on impact to blast a hole into the side. Inside the mound, they peck out a tunnel leading to a chamber where they lay their eggs. Termites seal off the tunnel from the inside so that their nests are separate. A nest is noisy, buzzing, swishing, rustling, flapping, and humming with babies, but only until they are ready to fly, swim, or crawl away. Then, a nest is quiet. Okay, so do you have in your mind those two different materials that a nest can be made out of? Go ahead and share with your partner, and then we'll take a minute and we'll all take turns and write on the chart so we have a full list of different things that a nest can be made out of.